Well, it's noon here on the East Coast, and this is news that you can use from YAA for Monday, June 20th. And, well, look who's back, ladies and gentlemen. Live and in the flesh, Zach Shefska. What else you want me to say?
More. Give me some accolades,
No,
something.
you're damn good looking, and my understanding is you almost speak fluent Portuguese.
Far from it, Dad. Far from it. Let's kick today's show off with a topic that nearly made me fall out of my seat this morning when I read it. Did you get a chance to read this article? You don't even know which one I'm turning to. Did you miss me?
Yes, of course. But I think I know which one you're talking about.
All right, let's take a peek. No, it is not that ad. New vehicle prices surge, but there's no shortage of buyers. The average new vehicle now costs nearly what a typical American or even an entire household makes in a year, but nobody seems all that concerned. The money shot right there, Dad. The average transaction price reached a May record of $45,502 for a new vehicle, according to J.D. Power. Cox Automotive and Moody's Analytics put the cost of acquiring a new vehicle in May even higher at $55,821 when including factors such as financing, a figure that represented 41.3 weeks of the $70,284 U.S. median household income, Pops.
You know what scared me when I read that headline? Is that they should be worried.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
That's not a tardy bell. That is a alarm bell.
Yes, they absolutely should be worried. I understand that prices are up. And according to some stats that we had seen last week, it put the average transaction price for new vehicles at over $46,000. So I guess it depends who's accumulating the data. And when we get deeper into this article, their suggestion is the average car payment today is in the $656 a month range, when last week, I believe it was on MSN or Yahoo News. It was $712. Either way, I understand that supplies are down, prices are up, and the demand seems to be steady, and that the manufacturers and the dealers and the banks aren't all that concerned about it. And my suggestion to them is take a closer look, okay? And a year from now, you're going to look back and go, oh, how did we miss all those warning signals?
Yeah, here's the deal. This is a show about the auto industry. We talk about the auto industry. The whole foundation for what we've built here is helping people buy a car and get a fair price. This is an economic disaster in the making. I mean, Dad, I'm 26. You've seen a heck of a lot more life than I have. What else do we need to see? What other indicators do we need to see that's like, hey, things are out of whack and there's going to be repercussions because of that? And we're just starting to see, I think, some more aggressive actions being taken, like the Fed raising interest rates. I know I wasn't here last week to talk to you about it, by 75 basis points instead of 50. We need to see aggressive actions because what's happening right now is ridiculous. The people who are going to be so underwater on these car loans, it's going to continue to perpetuate the move towards you don't own anything. You just lease everything. You finance everything, which is not a good position for most Americans to be in. And Dad, I saw on Twitter, a very reputable website, okay? I saw on Twitter, it was an article from Bloomberg. It was a survey they did. 1 out of 3 households that have an over $250,000 a year income live paycheck to paycheck.
Yes. And you say to yourself, how could that be? But
those are the ones who should be able to like buy these things.
These are perfect examples as to why it is. And I remember reading deeper into the article, and it was like, well, the average American won't be able to buy a car, can't afford to buy a car.
This is by design. I think this is by design.
Yeah, but here's the sad part. Most of us are average or below. Okay, the vast majority are not above average. Okay, there's a small subset, a small minority of people that are in that economic area that they can afford these things. And you've heard me say it before, that the chasm between those that can and those that can't has never been wider or deeper. Okay, and eventually, if it's a small minority that can actually afford to own these things, the vast majority who can't might, possibly could take offense at the way this is all set up and go, this system is so rigged that we need to change it. And the way that type of change might happen could be very, very ugly. So that even though dealerships are making more money than they've ever made as a whole, manufacturers are making more money than they ever anticipated they'd be able to make in these type of situations as a whole. And they say to themselves, well, there's always going to be buyers out there. They can't price out the vast majority of the public, because the vast majority of the public is going to raise up and say no more. The spread can't be this severe moving forward. We won't stand for it anymore. And those that have will go, well, I don't understand why people feel that way. And those that don't are going to go, I can't stand those 1%ers or 2%ers that just think they have to acquire all the wealth and not want to share it with the rest of us.
It
So
does feel that way, Pops. It really, really does. Look at this example from Core Guy. Guys, let me tell you how bad it is. I have a subprime friend who just bought a used Honda Civic for $28,200 out the door. At 24% APR for 72 months, he makes $23 an hour. The total payment is $900 a month.
the Core Guy, your friend can't afford that.
I come from a country where there's barely a middle class, only the rich and the poor. I see that happening now in the U.S. breaks my heart. I mean,
it does.
yeah, the example you just shared, yeah.
Yes, and the whole idea after World War II and the economic boom was to really create a strong middle class and bring everybody along for the ride. As the tide rises, all the boats will rise. And what we keep seeing is that only a few boats rise, and the rest of the damn boats, the rest of us, we're sinking. Okay, we are sinking under unfathomable debt. You can't tell me how it makes sense for people to finance a car for 72 months, pay back the type of money they have to pay back, be so stuck in that situation that they have no hopes of getting out. And what drives most people is that they work hard with the hope that there will be a reward at the end for working hard. And if it keeps becoming more and more painfully obvious that the reward is that the rich will get richer and the rest of us will stay the same, that eventually could impact work ethic. Why the hell should I be working so hard?
Well, I think what's happening, Dad, is we're seeing a transition from consumers owning cars and cars as a means of transportation to companies providing alternative ways to get you from point A to point B. Look at Ford and Tesla. You get a lease, you can't buy it at the end.
Yes.
That's like a push towards this. Hey, you want mobility? You can kind of rent it for a period of time.
Yes.
I think we're going to see more and more pushes towards, hey, you can't afford a car? Don't worry, because I can give you mobility from point A to point B. You're just going to kind of rent it. And we all know how terrible a position that is to be. I mean, it can be effective, right? Like if you want to have the newest, latest, and greatest, and you can consciously make that decision. But when you're boxed into renting,
Hmm.
it's kind of like the housing market, Dad. There's a lot of situations where it makes sense to rent. There's also a lot of situations where people have to rent because they can't afford to buy. They can't
Yes.
afford to find the money to make that down payment. Or they end up doing some of those low down payment options where you get hit with the PMI or the MIP, whatever the heck it is. The one that's
Yes.
not because you and it just becomes so hard to build wealth. It becomes incredibly challenging to build wealth when you're renting your car to get from point A to point B because you were forced to, because you didn't have another option. And I just
Well,
see that happening.
yes, you're right. In the future, your employer will provide you with transportation. It'll be in a company owned bus that will take you to and from where you live and work.
Dad, that already happens. Do you know about the Google bus? Do you know about that? And like
No.
in all right, Google commuter bus. Give me a second. They have these buses, Dad. Here, I mean, this might not be the best example of this, but I'll share my screen. Google's buses help. This is from 2007.
Oh my God.
Offers shuttle bus services from its main office in Mountain View. 1,200 employees use it. And I remember reading about this. I mean, I don't know if they'll have photos of it.
Yeah.
But I remember reading about that way back when. It was like the buses also had places for your computer and screens so you could be productive on the bus. Like,
Well, not too in the not too distant past, a lot of the big companies, big corporations, they actually provided their employees, their workers with corporate housing, company housing. It wasn't nice housing. It was housing. It was, you had a roof, you had some furniture, and the
yeah.
company provided all that for you. And the reason they provided it for you is because they weren't paying you a living wage so that you could go out and get it on your own.
I promise we'll move back to autos in a second, but did you see that Apple store in Towson, Maryland, unionized? Did you see that?
No, no.
It's the first retail Apple store to unionize against all of the wishes of Apple. But it's kind of indicative of like the conversation we're having here. It really, really is. It kind of speaks to wanting a living wage and things like that. I'm not saying necessarily good or bad, but it is indicative.
Well, okay, you won't say, but I'll say it. It's ultimately it's bad if a few hold the many down. That's bad.
Yeah.
Okay, if the few have that much power over the masses, that's bad. Okay, and they're only exacerbating it with what's going on in the retail automotive space at the moment with pricing. Okay, and I think there was a chart as part of that article that showed,
Yeah.
I think it was 10 years ago, the average selling price of a new car was like $35,000 10 years ago.
Here you
And
go,
today
Pops.
it's $45,000. Okay, excuse me. It was $26,000. And take a look at 2008. That was the one year where the average transaction price went down because we were in the throes of the Great Recession in 2008. And that forced prices down. And I'm not convinced in this recession that will necessarily be the case because the supply of cars is so limited and the demand of the few that can still afford to buy cars is strong enough that the manufacturers and the dealers might not have to come up with too much in the way of incentives. But look at those price increases and then look at the price increase from 2019 to 2020 and then 2021 to 2024 or 22. I mean, those types of annualized increases in the average transaction price are not sustainable for the vast majority of people in this country.
100%.
And my suspicion is, Zach, that this is just not a U.S. phenomenon. This is a worldwide phenomenon because inflation is not just high in the United States, it's high all over the world. Okay. Gas prices are not just high in the United States, they're high all over the world. Shortages are not just here in the United States, they're all over the world. So these type of huge increases because of shortages is happening everywhere. And it's pushing the middle class out of being able to acquire things.
Yeah, it totally is. All right, let's go to the chat here for a second, Pops. Jason says, just bought an Escalade for $88,000. CarMax is buying it for $110,000. Time to buy another SUV. Love your channel. Wow. So that's still going on. Even amidst all the craziness, used car
Yes.
prices, used car arbitrage, definitely still a thing. Igor, I have a
Yes.
friend who is the owner of a repo agency for cars, planes, and boats, and he is hiring people because the repo business is booming and he can't even do boat or plane repos because there's so many cars coming along. That's an interesting sign, to say the least.
It's a scary sign. Only it's only going to get worse in the near term. And I don't know when it'll change.
Frank here. We'd always enjoy seeing Frank from
Yes.
East Hills Jeep on the channel. Hey, Ray and Zach, and of course, everyone from the YA community. He says things are getting worse and worse between gas prices going up and federal rates, the interest rates going up. It's turning out to be not fun anymore. It sounds like maybe business is turning a little bit.
Yes. Well, I can only imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in trying times, it's never fun, especially if you sell for a living. Um, so yeah, I appreciate where Frank's coming from. And for Frank and everybody else in the car business that's selling cars, I've said it before, I'll say it again. There's nothing worse as a salesman than to have a customer who wants to buy something, but you not having the product to be able to sell it to them. Or in today's world, having a customer that wants to buy something, but the prices of it are so high that they no longer can afford to. That that just rips your heart out as a salesperson because you don't get paid unless you sell something. They don't pay you just for chatting with the customer. So, yeah, it's a
We've
tough time.
got here in the chat, Pops, from Mark. Ford CFO sounded the alarm on loan delinquencies. Let me actually pull that up. I know we didn't cue it for today's show. Give me 1 second here. This was actually posted by Mark back on the YAA community forum. And it says here, the quote, "We are seeing delinquencies start to increase," Ford Chief Financial Officer John Lawler told the Deutsche Bank 2022 Global Automotive Conference on Wednesday. "It's not yet a concern for us because coming out of last year and through the first part of this year, they were very low. It seems like we are reverting back towards the mean." And this all then goes to talk about how much car prices have gone up.
Yeah,
But obviously, Pops, we started to see in the TransUnion data that we looked at, what was that, 2 weeks ago
a
now,
couple weeks ago, yeah.
delinquencies are starting to go up.
Yeah. And you know, for him to even say it's not a concern yet. That's like one of their memos to their dealers not to upcharge customers. He knows it's a concern. Okay? He just doesn't want to exacerbate the concern. He doesn't want to admit the concern and worry the rest of the lenders and everybody else out there.
We talked about this a while ago, Dad. It was on Reddit. It was someone who posted it on Reddit. Remember, they said, Ford, we are committed to making sure that our dealers don't charge additional dealer markup. Ford financing, you can now finance up to 160% or whatever the number is, because you can add all the markups. And that speaks to putting people into positions where they can't actually afford what they're trying to buy. And you even just said it a little bit there. Like, the worst case for the salesman is not being able to get someone into the product. Part of the gamesmanship there is, how do I get a loan approved? How do I make sure they are? Ford
Well,
knows that part of their portfolio isn't going to make it. Some of those people can't actually afford the vehicles that they're in.
Well, and the other problem is, and this is a major problem, especially as gas prices. Thankfully, they've ticked down a tad. They've ticked down like 3 cents a gallon on an average. But it's it just becomes less and less affordable for more and more people. And as a salesperson, these manufacturers are taking the chips and that they have and only putting them into their high profit, high priced vehicles. There are no longer reasonably priced, affordable vehicles for those starting out getting their first new car. Okay. There's no $15,000 Ford Fiesta. There's there's I guess you could look at a Sentra or a Nissan Versa, but you can't find cars really that are being built today that are below $20,000. And if you can find those that are somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000, the dealers are tacking on a 20% additional market adjustment because of the shortages. So until manufacturers commit to building less expensive, more affordable starter cars for people, this is never getting better. And right now, they're reaping the profits of this chip shortage of just built. I mean, an $88,000, what was that? An Escalade? $88,000. Okay. And he can turn around and sell it for $110,000. That $110,000 would have bought two of my first homes. Okay. It shouldn't buy a car. A car shouldn't cost that much. We don't, I mean, nothing against that nice gentleman that likes those big SUVs, those luxury SUVs, but we don't really need that stuff. We need things that are affordable for the masses, and we need to market to the masses that it's okay to only buy things that you can actually afford. Okay? It's okay to have dreams that sometime, somewhere in the future, you might be able to afford more. But it's okay to just be average or even below average like me. Thank you. Thank you very much.
That was good, man. Wow. That was really good.
Well, I get passionate about certain things. I see things and I wonder why I don't think I don't think I'm a very bright guy. I don't see myself as a really intellectual type guy, but there's just certain things that you look at and you go, damn, common sense tells you that we can't keep doing this. Okay. And then I'm reminded that the problem with common sense is it's just not all that common. Okay.
Pops, let me hop back to the chat here for a second. We've got Igor saying, Zach, last week at Mannheim, they had a dedicated lane that ran over 120 repo cars. And That's just one auction site.
Wow. It's happening. And it'll happen quicker and faster and bigger than anybody is willing to admit at the moment. And when it does happen, it'll be like a damn avalanche.
So what's the play here then, Pops? What's the play here? Because I think we all agree. that prices have been inflated. We know that people are spending beyond their means. We know that. Do prices come back down like they did during the 2008 recession?
No.
Or is it because it's supply side they don't? Like what is this the new normal? And now it's like maybe going to be flat for a while at these new prices? What do you think?
I don't think the prices will come down during this recession like they did during the last recession, because the difference is during the last recession, there was actually inventory when there wasn't any demand. Well, now there's no inventory, but there's still demand. So even if demand were to decrease slightly, there still isn't enough inventory to maintain or take care of all that demand. So there could be some price pressure, downward price pressure, but not to the same degree that we saw in 2008.
It's crazy, Dad. It's going to be the same story that we've talked about since the beginning of all it. It's going to be chip shortage. It's going to be supply chain. Once that side is fixed, and now the caveat being, if the corporations are willing to go back to operating in a way where they actually provide enough supply to not artificially inflate prices, that'll be the
Mhm.
next concern. Is once supply is there, do the corporations, the manufacturers say, you know what, we like this new model
Oh, and they
where we have
do.
less, and they do because they've made more money than ever before. That's
Mhm.
the rub. That's where the friction is. They've found ways. Dealers and OEMs have found ways to make more money than ever before. That's not because of, you can't blame anyone for that. That was a supply chain snafu that has affected the whole globe. The question becomes, what do they do afterwards? Now that the supply chain piece is fixed, will they
Well,
go back to before? Will they not? They're not. They're definitely
we
not
we
going to.
we 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 know they're not. They've all said it. 2.5 years ago, the number of new cars in dealer inventory was a little over 4 million. Today, that number is about 1 million. And all the manufacturers have said, when things get back to normal, we don't anticipate producing the same number of cars that we did in the past. So they're saying, in a nice way, we really like the amount of profits we can reap by having lower inventory levels. So we're going to continue to have lower inventory levels. And I honestly believe in my heart of hearts that a new normal, once things do normalize, would be about 2 million cars in inventory as opposed to the 4 million cars. That would be enough cars to satisfy some of the folks that want to come in on a Saturday and drive home in their new car, because they saw something on the lot that they fell in love with. And it'll also allow the dealers to continue to pre-sell most of their incoming cars. And so that, I think, will be the normal that dealers and manufacturers would really like, and that will continue to screw consumers.
You know who isn't going to screw a consumer, Pops? I think it's going to be you and me. Did I tell you I got a present for you when I was in Portugal? Quick
You
little
did
trip,
not.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I did. I did.
Okay.
It just so happens that while I was away,
Yeah.
we bought a website.
Oh,
We we
really?
we bought CarEdge.com, everyone. So
Oh,
if you're
wow.
unfamiliar, we've talked about it before on the channel. Ah, man, so excited about this because when you think about vehicles, Dad, buying them is just one piece of the picture. You also have how
Yes.
they're going to depreciate, how much it costs to insure, maintenance, the cost to own, how valuable the car is going to be. Super proud of what we got here with CarEdge. So let me show you an example.
Okay.
Go to any particular vehicle. Name a vehicle, Pops.
Mini.
I knew you were going to say Mini.
Well, what the
All
hell? I
right.
drive one.
We're going to go to Mini. Clubman.
Sure. Next time I'll stick with something in the A's.
Thank you. If you're curious,
Yes.
and yes, I know right now there's a lot of ads on this website. Trust me,
Yeah.
we're going to make a few changes as we start to get under the hood. But you can actually, Dad, start to model out what your depreciation is going to be. So, for example, brand new, let's say
Yes.
you drive those 7,500 miles, own it for 5 years, calculate your
Yes.
depreciation, stand by, stand by, stand by. There's a bit of what your depreciation curve
Wow.
starts to look like on that Mini. Now, other super cool and interesting stuff that we have here. Let me go to research, cost to own. Let's do maintenance. Vehicles that are the cheapest to maintain versus
Wow.
those that are the most expensive to maintain. I'm going to click on Mini. Here you
That's
can start to see how much it costs to maintain and the
Yeah.
estimated probability of a major repair in any
Uh,
given year.
well, I don't think they have that estimate correct. It happens sooner rather than later.
Anyway, I encourage everyone to start clicking around on CarEdge because we're going to start to integrate their data back on the Join YAA website. Of course, they even have this cool comparison functionality, Dad. Like if you wanted to compare, I don't know, a GMC to a BMW and see how they depreciate. You can start to compare their depreciation curves. They have some like built-in ones down here that you can click around on, like
Wow,
here's some
very
info
interesting.
versus. Take a peek. Everyone go check it out. The data, the reason that we're doing this is because we want to empower people with more information to be able to actually make a smart decision. So encourage everyone to check that out and give us some thoughts. Like, where do you want to see us incorporate that information back on the YAA website?
I think that's great. So that's my present from Portugal.
It's your present from Portugal.
Well, thank you very much. I can't wait to get it. Is that www.caredge.com?
Indeed.
I can't wait to go there and depress myself with how much my Mini will depreciate in short order.
Well, Pops, that's why you lease. That's why you lease.
That is why I lease.
All right, we will be back tomorrow. Does that sound like a plan, Dad?
Yeah,
should be
tomorrow's Tuesday. Let me check my calendar. Noon tomorrow. I'm available. I'm available.
Thank you for holding down the fort while I was gone. It was nice to get away for a little bit. I'm excited to be back. And man, oh man, is there a lot to cover. So thank you again. And yeah, happy to be back with you, Pops.
Well, thank you for allowing me to try and lead when I'm better being the one that's led. So, but I had a good time doing it, and I want to thank Justice and Phil and Mario and Kimberly and everybody that helped fill in last week and everybody that watched and participated. We made it through last week. It's so good to have Zach back. I actually can't wait to see him in person.
Yeah, we're going to be in person, what, in 9 days, 7 days, 8 days?
Something like that. Yeah.
Can't wait to.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Me too.
All right, Pops, I'll catch you later.
Yep, I'll see you tomorrow. So we'll be back here tomorrow at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, with more news that you can use from YAA with your hosts, Ray and Zach. See you tomorrow, everybody.
See you, Pops.
Yep, bye-bye.